Board. So welcome everyone. This is a breakout session on mapping your career options. This is a half-hour session. I finish up a little bit early, and I very well might. I hope we have some opportunity to answer any questions that anybody here might have. I'll do my best to answer them, and if I can't get stuff answered within the time frame we have today, I encourage you to schedule a follow-up appointment with a career advisor. We're happy to help you answer questions on mapping your career options or anything else career related that we're able to. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So mapping your career options, what does that mean? So I know many folks in here are maybe closer to the beginning of their college career at the freshman or sophomore level, and there might be some folks that are junior, senior level if you're still kind of navigating where you want to kind of end up after school and years beyond that. There's no wrong time to start thinking about this stuff, and you should really always start thinking about this stuff as your goals continue to change and evolve as you get further along in your career. So really, we're here to find out, what do you like doing, and what are you good at, and what is needed by today's employers. It's a combination of those three things that help you as a job seeker, as an internship seeker, come up with what you can do, what you should do, and what you want to do. There's no one correct way to look for a job. You might have heard that cliche, do what you love. That's one way to go about it, but you could also do what you're good at. You could do what is aligning with your core values, and you could pursue things for money if that's what you want to do. There's no wrong way to search for a job, but it's a matter of coming up with what is most important to you. And I mentioned 4 main things. Some of those things might overlap with each other, and that's okay. The trick is mapping out all of your options, looking for intersections over, like I said, things that you like to do, things that you're good at doing, and what someone will actually pay you to do, what is considered valuable in today's market. So yeah, you look for that overlap, what you love, what you're good at, what an employer needs. And ideally, if you can come up with something that borders all 3 of those things, that's where you can ultimately find that really, really fulfilling position and career path that can, guide you along for the rest of your career. And again, your goals might change. 10 years down the line, after you're working a little bit, you might decide, I don't really know if I like doing this anymore. Maybe your goals have changed. Maybe the market has changed and what is needed has changed. Maybe maybe you've developed a new skill, you're good at a new thing, and you want to kind of fully figure out ways to flesh that out for a career path. So that overlap might constantly shift, not only throughout your time in college, but your time after college as well. And that's perfectly okay. It's actually very normal for something like that to happen. So we're going to talk about 4 major mapping tactics on mapping your career journey and career pathway: identifying skills and interests, exploring keywords, finding market connections, and ultimately pathway mapping. And then we'll wrap up with some kind of next steps that you can potentially do beyond this very, very brief intro into career mapping. So number 1, identifying skills and interests, looking for opportunities to really ask those big questions. This is really the foundational first step in career mapping and figuring out where you want to go with your career and what you want to do, whether that's tying things into a major, or if you already have a major picked out, tying that major into what you would ultimately do after you graduate from the call. So number 1, in identifying skills and interests, if a benefactor, this is part of asking yourself those big questions to see what you really like doing, what your interests are. Some sample questions that you can maybe ask yourself. If a benefactor gave you $1 billion to start your own business or a nonprofit, what would it be? What would your role be? So if money were not an option, if you could do anything you wanted, what would that be and why? Start coming up with a list, start thinking of it, formulating it that way. If I had to teach something, what would I teach? If you can teach anything in the world, whether it's something that you know the ins and outs of, whether it's something that you maybe don't know a lot about now, but that you want to know about, what would you teach to someone else and why would you teach it? What do I love enough to do for free? Essentially asking the same thing as those previous 2 questions, just worded in a slightly different way. You can think about it any of those ways. It's just ways to help you get at what do I really like to do? This is step one. We're going to kind of talk about how you connect what you like to do with actual viable career paths next. What was the most successful project I ever took on and what made me successful? So this is a more kind of tangible question that takes things out of the realm of theory and places it in reality, like looking at past experiences you've had, whether it's from college, from high school, something outside of school, something you've done, with a friend group. What did you do that was you considered to be whatever you defined as success? Why was it successful? And what made you successful at that ultimate project end goal? When working in a team, what roles am I drawn to? So if you were, whether it was part of a school project or again, something on your own, did you, find yourself drifting towards a project leadership role? Did you find that you really liked to kind of organize tasks? Were you the designated tech person on that project? What did you kind of naturally drift towards? Think of commonalities if you've worked with multiple teams on multiple projects. Were you tending to go in one direction, or were you maybe taking on different roles for each project? It's good to kind of think about, both of those things and figure out, if you were drifting towards one particular role or type of role, why is that? If you were kind of trying to doing different things, was it because you consciously wanted to try out different things, or was it because you naturally liked to do all those things and other folks on your team were taking up some of those other roles? So all good things to start thinking about how you figure out what your interests are and making them tangible. So next, exploring keywords and looking at in-demand skills. This is, again, we're starting with asking those big questions, starting with very kind of ethereal, like theory-based stuff, and we're moving into more of the tangible, practical things that you can then do with that. So exploring keywords, start with a skill or subject you're passionate about and type this word into any job board. Don't worry about location. We're just, again, looking at the results that we get by typing these things in. I recommend if you want to try this, try starting with Indeed, Indeed.com. It's a job board and it's very broad-based. It pulls from other sites. So you'll get probably the broadest swath of job search results when you're using a site. So I recommend maybe starting with that if you aren't really sure or particular about working in a specific industry. But again, it's just more of an exploratory phase for you right now. So starting with a skill or subject you're passionate about, you can, looking at step one, are there skills or subjects that you pulled when thinking about some of those big questions from step one, and maybe pulling some of that language in and plugging them into a job search engine to see what pops up. What are some of the job titles that tie into that result from your search? Who are the employers and what are their industries? Are there commonalities amongst employers? If you're typing in a certain interest or skill, are you getting companies that are similar to each other, or are they widely disparate and don't seemingly have a lot in common? What kinds of responsibilities do these positions have? So don't just look at the job title. The job title doesn't necessarily tell you a whole lot. And sometimes, a job title at company A might have the exact same job title at company B, but sometimes those descriptions read very differently. Conversely, a job title at company A might have a completely different job title at company C, but those job titles read almost identically. So don't get too concerned with job title. When you put in whatever you decided to search by, go step past, take a note of the job title, but really read that job description, see what the daily responsibilities are and what the requirements are. Especially looking at those responsibilities, ask yourself, is this something that I think I find interesting? Is that I think I would like to do for 8 hours a day? What skills are associated with these roles? What salaries correlate with these roles? You can, they're not often going to say the salary directly on the job description, but there's other resources you can use to find general salary ranges for different types of jobs that you find as a result. Again, we're exploring keywords, identifying 5 of the most interesting or appealing of these job board results. So you might do multiple searches on one keyword. I recommend doing searches on multiple keywords of interest that you have or skills that you have, and seeing what things pop up. Making a note, making a log for yourself, recording some of the things that you find the most appealing for whatever reason. And then again, looking for commonalities, like what is interesting to me about this particular role or about this set of roles that I've found. What do I like about this employer? You know, is it the type of industry that you'd be working in that's of interest to you? Is it, you know, their methodology? Is it, you know, what that employer values? Is it the customer base that they service? Is that interesting to you? So start looking at those things too, not just the position itself, but more broadly than if the position is interesting to you. Okay, this employer is hiring for that position. Maybe I want to look at what is this employer? I've never heard of this company before, or maybe I have, but I don't know a lot about them. So maybe then you want to go to the company website, read a little bit about who they are, what they do, what kind of products or services they offer, who they offer them to. It also just helps to add context to whatever it is that you're looking at. You know, how many similar roles do I see in this job board? Again, that's kind of getting at like, what is the market asking? You know, if you've only found one job on all of your searches that like matches whatever the search terms you put in, if you've only found one job that matches that, and it's highly interesting to you, well, that's great. But if there's only one job that's like that, it's going to be pretty competitive to land that job. And it kind of tells you a little bit about what the market value is. If there's only one job that fits those parameters, it's probably not a job that's in super high demand. So again, it's something to kind of throw in that soup of what I like, what I'm good at, and what the market is looking for. Something to kind of consider, like how many postings I'm actually seeing that meet these search results. And hey, I might really love doing this, but if I'm only seeing one job that matches that, it might not be something that's necessarily worth pursuing too hard if it's not really a super in-demand skill. What skills do I have that make me ideal for this role? Like, what do I already have? And what am I maybe missing? And that's going to kind of fall into the next step. What skills or experience would I need to gain to be competitive? Kind of like what I was talking about. That's what we're going to talk with finding market connections and looking at actual employer targets. So again, kind of combining the first and the second step, finding market connections, listing the kinds of roles or functions that interest you. This helps you kind of curate more keywords to do your search. So let's say whatever keywords you did to come up with that initial search result for jobs and internships that you found from those job boards, you read those descriptions, you look at, okay, here are the skills I put in. I see how they're a part of the daily responsibilities for this role. But okay, what else is involved in this job that I didn't necessarily at first consider? And making a note of other responsibilities, other qualifications that you don't yet have. Making a note of that, asking yourself, is this something that I want to do too? And if it is, how can I go about learning that? So then you can also type in or kind of make a note of some of those other things. Like, for example, like we put some examples here: writing, teaching, designing, data management, managing, storytelling, things like that. These are other things that you can then kind of search by and cross-reference too. Again, with finding market connections, then you can kind of identify the spaces or interests or industries that interest you, or where you maybe already have some particular experience in, whether it's work or volunteer or some combination thereof. These could be general, like museums or libraries, or very specific, like health-focused startups, for example. So again, you can look at the industry, you know, museum, school, like higher ed, fashion, creative agencies, tech, consulting, fashion, et cetera, et cetera. And step 3, start drawing some connections between some of the skills that either you have and you want to develop and those industries that you potentially want to work for or learn more about. And then kind of start ideating, you know, when you're matching up, say, presenting with bank, you know, what is a job that can kind of fit between that? And if you can't think of a job off the top of your head, try typing those two things into Google or Indeed or wherever in career and see what kinds of search results come up in terms of actual tangible jobs that meet both of those requirements. And you get creative with it, try different combinations of keywords to see what comes up. It's again, just another way to kind of ideate and find some potential career pathways that match not only what you're good at, but the industries that you have some potential interest in as well. Finally, with pathway mapping, looking at other people's stories. Here's a few examples of DePaul alumni who have gone on to work in their respective industries. Exploring through stories, really looking at alumni stories. It doesn't have to be alumni, it could be anybody, but you might want to start with alumni. Always start with people that you have something in common with, and then kind of expand your search from there. But find people that have had similar pathways to yourself up to this point, that maybe had similar interests to you that are now working in field, and looking at their career pathway and finding out how they made those steps and reach success by finding a role that best fit them. And could that same role be something that best fits you too? You can start using things like LinkedIn to actually browse and look for recent graduates. You can search by major, you can search by when someone graduated, where they live, what company they work for, what they studied, a million other things. You can actually, from LinkedIn, DePaul has a page on LinkedIn, so you can search DePaul, you can search DePaul's LinkedIn page, and then from there, there's a button that says alumni, so you can search all alumni by all those search parameters that I just mentioned. And you can kind of read their profile. It's kind of like, if you've never used LinkedIn, it's kind of like Facebook, and that you can kind of read their profile, but a LinkedIn page almost reads like a resume. You can see someone's career history, their education, maybe projects they've worked on, other stuff as well. So it's a good place to kind of start. And you can even start reaching out to people that you maybe want to make a connection with or have questions for. Like if you find someone that is working at a job that you're really, really interested in, but you don't know too much about, maybe try connecting with them on LinkedIn and message them and saying, who you are and why you're reaching out. Hey, I just started my let's say, major at DePaul. I'm pursuing my bachelor's degree in computer science, and you're working as a Python developer. And I just love to learn more about how you reached that role and a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis, because I'd like to maybe do that one day too, and I just want to learn a little bit more about it. That's what things like LinkedIn are for. So nobody should be surprised if you reach out to them out there. I know it can be kind of scary if you've never used it before. You don't need to have any qualifications to do this. As long as you have a LinkedIn account and a page, you can start reaching out to people, and you should. And I recommend, especially if you're, on the freshman and sophomore side of things, but really anywhere, but it's good to start this stuff early, making a good practice of it, maybe setting a goal for yourself. Hey, I'm going to try to reach out to 5 people a day or 10 people a week, whatever seems reasonable and manageable to you. But I recommend trying that. You'd be shocked by how many people want to help you and answer your questions if they're able to. So I recommend giving that a shot to just, number one, get answers to some of those questions, make yourself a more informed job seeker. And now you kind of part B, organically have expanded the net of people that you have that you can talk to and then go to for future questions as well. And one other thing I wanted to mention too, I mentioned LinkedIn. Not many people know this, but on Handshake, you can do something very similar. If you use Handshake, you can search by employer on Handshake. And if you go to the any employer page that you search, there's a whole wealth of information, not only what positions or jobs they've posted or if they're interviewing on campus, but you can also search and see other students that have worked or interned at that company. And that's not only students from DePaul, that's any school that uses Handshake, which now numbers in the hundreds, if not thousands, across the US. And Handshake has its own internal messaging system. So you can actually message other students from different colleges within Handshake, asking them some of those same questions that I mentioned that you can do on LinkedIn too. Again, it's a feature not many people know about, but it's there for a reason, and this is why. So I recommend taking advantage of it and using it for sure. So kind of to start wrapping up, I mentioned, next potential steps. I know we can't answer all of your questions in this, short little half-hour session, but looking at what the Career Center can do for you. We do some drop-in career coaching. We do virtual appointments with career advisors. I am a career community advisor. I advise for the technology and design career community, but we have six or seven different career communities. The number is escaping me right now, but all based around different industries. We have one for business entrepreneurship and consulting, media communication, arts and entertainment, healthcare and science, education, nonprofit, and government. And I think that's it. But if you have interest in any of those subject matter areas, come and talk to us. Come and say hello. If you want to learn more about the industry, we're here to help and answer your questions. If you want to have a resume reviewed or help with a cover letter or help with interview prep or a million other things that are career related, we're also here to help you with that stuff too. So please feel free to set up appointments. You can set up appointments with us again within Handshake. There's a scheduling system under the Career Center tab in there too. We also have our career library, which is on our website. On our DePaul Career Center website, there's a resources button, career library. It basically has a bunch of handouts, like 2-page PDF documents that basically cover all the stuff that we can talk about in one-on-one advising. We know not every student is able to or wants to meet with us. And despite our feelings getting a little bit hurt, we try not to take it too personally. But everything we talk about is also available in this career library too. So if you're just looking for a quick little snapshot or takeaway, the career library is great. There's resources on resume, construction, cover letters, navigating your job search, handling job offers, how to navigate, how to match again your skills with potential career pathways, like kind of like what we've been talking about here. But it's a good starting place. I recommend again for next steps beyond that, please make sure you come in and talk to us too. I mentioned Handshake. There's a lot of things you can do with Handshake besides the aforementioned things I mentioned. You can also search for jobs and internships directly on Handshake too. And also, I didn't mention this, but we have our Ask Network, which is it stands for Alumni Sharing Knowledge. That's a place where you can also, it's another place to network with alumni specifically. It's kind of like a pared down, stripped back, simplified version of LinkedIn. But everybody that's on there is on there because they want to help current students and recent grads in the capacity that they can. So I recommend getting on there too. If you just type DePaul and Ask into Google, you'll find that. I just don't want to open up a bunch of links right now. And this is our Career Center website, careercenter.depaul.edu. Whoops. So these are some skills labs, some previous skills labs, as well as some upcoming skills labs that we've done. These are little half-hour bite-sized workshops, kind of like what we're doing today, that cover a whole wealth of things. Like, for example, 5 free online certificates, intro to content marketing, mastering the art of grant writing, all kinds of fun stuff. You don't need to be in any particular or specific major to attend these. In fact, it's encouraged to kind of cross over. Like if you are an English major, but you really want to learn about design thinking because you want to kind of really, let's say like spruce up your resume and take it to the next level. Maybe you want to take that intro to design thinking skills lab. So there's all kinds of ways to kind of mix and match whatever major or college that you're in. You can attend any of these events regardless of the topic. Career workshops. We also do these longer workshops where it's a bit more interactive. Sometimes we'll actually review your resumes in these workshops. We'll maybe go through some interview prep depending on what the topic is. So keep on the lookout for these too. Again, all these career workshops and the skills labs, again, you can find them in Handshake under the events tab. You can search all upcoming events to see what we have coming up this quarter. Mapping your career options. Hey, you're here right now. Good job. And then finally, joining a career community. I mentioned before, here are all the career communities. I think I got them all. Oh, the one I missed was exploring careers and interests. That's really like, if you haven't declared a major yet, if you're really not sure what you want to do, that's a great career community to join because that's exactly who it's for. It's helping you figure out, again, kind of like what this half-hour session is, blown up huge, wide, and getting super granular with it, really helping you exploring your interests and how to connect those things with careers. You can opt into a career community, again, within Handshake under that, what is it called? There's a questionnaire within Handshake that asks you if you want to join a career community. That's under the career interests tab in there, so you can do that. There's other ways to join too, which if you meet with an advisor one-on-one, we'll walk you through that process too. And then Internship Plus, this is obviously last year, but the due dates for this year are very similar. If you find an internship that is unpaid, Internship Plus is a way to pay students a stipend for finding an unpaid internship. So there are opportunities, even if you're finding an internship that is not sometimes paid, there are ways to get reimbursement for that internship too. So keep on the lookout for that as well. I mentioned our career library. Here are some of the topics and handouts, informational interviews, grad school 101, personal identity in your brand, dress for success, and working remotely, the basics of that. This is the URL for that. But if you just go to DePaul's Career Center page, hit that resources tab, and then drop down, its career library is the first thing in there. You can find, there's a good 50 plus little handouts like this, little 2-page handouts that have some really great takeaways for some of these things. So I want to thank everybody for that time. I know we have a couple minutes left. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. You can either type in the chat or feel free to speak up. And if no questions, that's certainly okay too. And I believe at 4:30, everybody will go back into the main room. Okay, question. This is my first semester as an international student. Is it possible to get an internship this summer? So depending on what your visa situation is, if you're an international student, and this is your first semester, if you're on an F1, I believe you need to be a full-time student. Yeah, okay, so you need to be a full-time student for 3 quarters before doing an internship. So I believe if you started this quarter, the earliest you can do that internship, I think, would be the fall quarter. But I would recommend talking to the International Student Services Department for more information on that. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. Yeah, so a question about resume creation, who can help with that? We can certainly help with that. We can do resume reviews in our one-on-one advising. We also do drop-in resume reviews. We as advisors, we do things by appointment. However, sometimes our schedules get booked up, especially towards the beginning and end of the quarter. So if you're looking to have your resume reviewed immediately, when you hop on the Career Center website, there's a little pop-up window that pops up that asks what you need help with. And there you can type, I want to have my resume reviewed. And we have peer ambassador or peer advisors that can look at your resume right then and there without any waiting, without any appointments needed. A couple other questions. I'll try to get to these in the next minute or so because we're all going to get kicked out of this room. Again, I encourage you, if I don't answer your question, please set up an appointment with an advisor. Is there someone who can meet with, who can help us find internships best suited for us? Again, come and talk to us. We can talk about how you can kind of navigate your internship search. When I say job search, I mean internship search too. It's all kind of the same. Looking for an internship is just like looking for a job. Same strategies apply. We are happy to chat about that with you. Can you intern online over summer if you're out-of-state students? I believe so. There are some qualifications for internships, which you can find on, if you're looking to get credit for it. Ooh, I hope I can find this before we get kicked out of here. It's UIP 250. If you look up UIP 250, it has all of the rules there. I'll put this in the chat real quick. So this will explain what you need to do in order to get credit. Whoops, I just sent this directly to an individual person. I apologize. Let me change that. So that's UIP 250. And that you can copy and save that. That'll explain how to get credit for an internship. Can you still get it reimbursed during a spring quarter internship? If you're talking about Internship Plus, I think the deadline I don't know if the deadline's passed for that yet. That's something that you can check on Internship Plus. Let's see here. So this is where you can find out info on Internship Plus. I believe the deadline for spring, it's February 7th. So, I'm sorry, applications open February 7th for the spring quarter. The deadline is March 6th. So yes, you could still potentially qualify for Internship Plus for spring quarter. I'm going to stop recording here.